Welcome everybody to the first of several episodes of our indie showcase looking at nextfest 2023, specifically the February edition. We played through all 7 nights, and for the next few videos, these are going to be collections of my favorite game demos we checked out. So everyone, get comfy, we got a lot to go over. Alright, we are starting things all with Meat Grinder, the FPS that dares to ask the question, could we make Ultra Kill and Doom Eternal even more chaotic of games? And the answer to that is yes. This is a game where you are traveling via Mad Max style convoys, dealing with all the enemies that get in your way by boot, by shoot, or by grapple boot. As the twist here is that your BPM in the bottom is your regeneration and your health. Stand still and don't do a lot, and your heart rate will slow down and you will die. Flip around, shoot enemies, and just be as awesome looking as you can, and your health will constantly regenerate. You unlock additional weapons, and things get more and more ludicrous as the game goes on, especially as the demo went on. Arguably, the game may be a little too chaotic in spots, and I did know some, I think frame rate loss or some stuttering in a few of the more insane situations. But this is definitely going to be the next big FPS for those of you looking for even more crazy situations out of an Ultra Kill or a Doom Eternal style game. I don't know if you've heard of this game called Vampire Survivors, but it's gotten really popular and there are a lot of developers who are going to be making games similar to it. And the first one of this episode or the series is going to be yet another Zombie Survivors, from the developers of yet another tower defense or zombie defense game. And this one, despite the very obvious trappings, seems to be a very solid VS-like. Your mission, of course, is to hold out against waves and waves of zombies. But what the game does as an interesting twist is that besides collecting weapons, you build your own kind of gauntlet-style party of various classes. Each class comes with different weapons, different passives, and different kind of secondary weapons that they can unlock. And as you play and go through the maps, you unlock different tiers of unlocks for each character, you unlock new classes, and that kind of thing. And it works really well for this design. Now, whether or not this will get you to check out a VS-like if you hate that kind of design, that's another story here or there. But if you are looking for another one of this kind of style, I would definitely suggest yet another Zombie Survivors. We now turn to Radio the Universe. This is, I guess, a Zelda-like by way of Suda51 in terms of the mood and, I guess, setting of it. We are exploring a mysterious city. Everything is out to kill us, and there's a lot of weird things going on. So the game itself is played like a more action-focused take on a Zelda-like. You're able to run, jump/dodge, and you'll acquire additional weapons and upgrades as you proceed. What separates this game, besides the very unique aesthetic, is how combat and leveling up plays out. In order to earn experience in this game that can be used to unlock additional upgrades, raise your stats, etc., you need to perfect kill enemies. And to do that, you must hit them with the exact amount of damage needed to take their health down to 0. Not -1, not -3, it has to be perfectly 0. So this creates this very interesting dynamic of, it's not only about proper dodging and attacking while everything is trying to kill you, but you need to make sure that you hit them with the right amount of damage right upon death. And this game features bosses and a lot of very interesting situations. We only played the demo for, I want to say maybe halfway through, give or take, but this is definitely shaping up to be a very different action-adventure game, and another one that is really leaning into style. And I'm curious to see where it's all going to go when the game is released. We now have Protodroid Delta. This is a kind of 3D action platformer, kind of like 3D Mega Man X in its somewhat of its style. We play as a Protodroid who, when bad robots are trying to wreak havoc in the city, it's going to be up to us, our energy sword, and of course our blaster to save the day. So this one, your main thing is that your blaster has of course a normal and charged shot, with the charged shot able to destroy shields. However, it is limited based on the yellow meter you see in the upper left. You can regain charge by attacking enemies with your sword, and the major form of movement tech, at least in the demo that I played, is using your dash in order to, as you can see, really boost your jump. Levels are mostly linear, but there are sometimes little side areas which you can explore for upgrades, more health, that kind of thing. Now, we didn't get to see if there's any additional sub-weapons or boss fights along those lines, but this game does have some promise if you're looking for kind of a 3D take on the Mega Man formula. We had a few deck building roguelike and light style games, and one of them is Creeping Deck Pharaoh's Curse. This is another Slay the Spire-like, but we are trading fantasy and that mythology for an Egyptian aesthetic. We're going to be fighting mummies, mages, and a giant beetle at one point. Now, from what I played of this one on stream, the big thing is that this is not a roguelike, but a roguelite. There is a heavy emphasis on persistence and unlocking permanent upgrades. After each fight, you'll get permanent resources which can be used to unlock additional services, raise your base stats, change cards, etc., etc. And this is one of those games where, again, the chance of you winning on your first run, even if you are an expert at deck builders, is very minimal. One thing I wasn't a fan of is that the sound effects do get a little bit annoying with some of the enemies, and you hear this like boom noise every time a turn ends. But there's some good things here, and I would say that if you are looking for a kind of, I guess, quote-unquote standard deck builder style game, at least, keep this one in the back of your mind for when it's released later this year. We now turn to Dungeons of Aether, a game that is definitely not a traditional style game. This is from the makers of Rivals of Aether, and you don't need to be a Smash player to enjoy this one, but basic math skills, which I apparently don't have, is another matter. Our twist here is that each character during combat has 4 stats that you see up there. You draft dice going back and forth to determine which ones you will place where. Colored dice will give more of a bonus to that respective trait. Attack and defense are pretty straightforward. The act, which is also considered technique, the more that you have, the more you can activate specific special moves that you see in the bottom left and bottom right corners of the screen. So part of the strategy of this game is that you're trying to not only do damage, but also set up for future turns, such as placing dice in the act spot to maybe get a more powerful next turn, so in case the enemy will kind of overwhelm your attack with defense this turn. Now, this does not appear to be a roguelike style game, at least from what I was looking at on the store page, but they're selling a lot here, and I'm curious about where things go with upgrades, additional items, unlocking new stuff, etc. So this is one of those games that if you like what you see and you're looking for a very different take on like an RPG battle system, definitely check out Dungeons of Aether. We now turn to something that is a lot more rockin', and that is Valfaris Mecha Therion. We are moving from a 2D run and gun of the previous Valfaris to now metal shmup. We are in a giant mecha suit, and we are going to be flying through a lot of blood and a lot of metal in order to save the day and kill anything that stands in our way. So the big thing is that the game has kind of moved from a predominantly pixel art style to this kind of 2.5D look, and it did grow on me as we played through the demo. So the basics here is that you have always a primary gun and a melee attack. Your melee can be used to charge up for kind of like your special attack. And you also have a dash meter. That is the circular bar in the upper right. When you dash, you have iframes, and you can also dash into enemies to deliver a stronger attack. So the challenge here is managing your health, secondary, and your dash to deal with waves and waves of enemies. And it wouldn't be a Valfaris style game if there weren't alternate paths, secrets, and being able to upgrade your weapons using the blood medals that you get for murdering your foes. So the demo was only playable on normal difficulty, and I'm kind of curious to see what does like the hardest one look like for this game. But I was getting into this one. It can be on the harder side. Again, your ship model can be, or your mech model, can be a little hard to dodge some attacks, and you really do need to rely on your sword to destroy enemy bullets. But like the last game, it does seem like it's going to be at least fair when it comes to checkpointing, especially during boss fights. So, if you are a fan of both metal and shmupping, then this is definitely one to check out. We go from metal and destructive to something far more peaceful yet brain-melting. This is Sushi For Robots, another game in the genre of very adorable aesthetics meets brain-melting puzzles. It is sometime in the future, and robots really want sushi, and it is up to you to deliver. Your base mechanics here is that each robot will want a sushi of the color or their respective color. The sushi will go around the kind of river or the lines as you see here, and your job to set up arrows as well as painting devices that change the color of the sushi so that will hit each respective robot within the number of turns allotted. And this is one of those games that it looks a lot harder than you might think, or it is a lot harder than it might look here. And this puzzle here I definitely got stuck on. So this is going for, I would say, more on the advanced side. Do not let the cute graphics fool you. But if you are someone who likes your puzzle games to be brain melty and adorable at the same time, then definitely check out Sushi For Robots. We now turn to Ninja or Die. This is an action roguelite where we play as a ninja who seems to be trapped in a strange circumstance and will have to fight their way out. Our twist in this one is that you do not actually move around. Instead, all movement is based on jumping. You can see the various jumping angles with those dotted lines. When you jump into an enemy, you will attack them. And for a brief second when you leave the ground, you have iframes. Your mission is to explore each area by finding villagers. They act as kind of like a persistent currency, as well as finding specific people who will open up services back in your hub/town. So as you play through, you'll collect different items, get upgrades such as improving how high you can jump, and more. So this game definitely has a lot of charm to it. Once you kind of get past the movement tech of it, there is something here. Now, if I did have one complaint about it, the game features a very stylized look with its pixel art, and everything kind of sticks out. But that also means that it's sometimes very easy to lose an enemy or a hazard in all the detail. And I'm not quite sure where things will go in terms of additional enemies, just how, I guess, substantial the persistent unlocks will be. But this one was definitely a lot of fun, and we were getting into it by the end of it. So if you're looking for a very movement tech focused game, definitely check this one out and see if it would work for you. So with that, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have even more nextfest 2023 demos to get to. But if you're interested in my thoughts on design, then check out my game design books. For entry-level students, we have 20 essential games to study, and then the Game Design Deep Dive series that takes an extensive look at different genres, with more coming soon. We now have Grim Guardians Demon Purge. This is the next game from developers of the Bloodstained kind of spin-off games that were more heavily inspired by Castlevania, and this one is looking to be no exception. You play as Shinobu and Maya, two high school sisters who also are badass demon hunters. And when their school gets merged into the demon world, it's up to the siblings to fight, save their classmates, and bring the school back. So this is definitely not a Metroidvania style game. Instead, this is going with the Castlevania stage format. You can return to stages to find alternate routes, use unlocked abilities and sub-weapons to go additional ways, and so on. So with the two sisters, Shinobu, or the blue one, she has a long-range gun, while Maya can use her sword for more damage, and she's shorter, so she can crawl underneath kind of the platforms and gaps there. And yes, you are going to be swapping between the two in order to make use of specific attacks or get around enemy patterns. And wouldn't be a Castlevania style game without giant bosses, desperation phases, and more. While this one doesn't look like it's going to be reinventing the formula, it does look like it's going to be a very solid Castlevania style game. And it is one of those games that you should have already determined by now whether you're all in or all out for it. So if you enjoyed the Bloodstained side stories and you're looking for more 2D Castlevania, definitely check this one out. We now have Nocturnal. This is a 2D action adventure game with an aesthetic that reminds me a lot of like a Prince of Persia style theme. We play as a warrior who is returning to his island kind of community to find that the place is surrounded by an evil mist. Most of the people are either dead or corrupted, and we are going to figure things out, well, by setting a lot of stuff on fire. You see, fire and light are our primary drivers for combat, exploration, and puzzle solving. If you stay in the dark too long in specific areas, you will take damage. A lot of enemies can only be hurt by using fire, and you'll also have to light switches, as you can see here, by using fire. You'll also gain the ability to unlock additional upgrades using the currency you collect off of enemies, as well as from breaking lots of stuff. And the challenge of this game is kind of built on having to transfer fire from one part of an area to the next to activate switches, unlock hidden areas, and so on. And there are going to be bosses to fight as well with multiple patterns. This game is only like it's going to be on the moderate to maybe challenging side of things when it comes to having to balance the light, dodging, and of course healing and setting things on fire and keeping your own sword on fire at the same time. But Nocturnal was one of those games that I didn't really know what I was getting into when we first tried it, but I was really enjoying it by the end of the play. And if you are looking for another action-adventure game to check out, this one comes with a really good recommendation. We now turn to Elypse. This is a Metroidvania where we are trapped in another dimension. And in order to get out, we're going to do what any platforming hero will do, and that is platform our way to safety. The game follows very similar designs of, say, a Celeste or an Ori. Your primary upgrades, at least from the demo itself, is the ability to dash and shoot out these kinds of attack thorns at baddies. You see the kind of reserve or your supply at the bottom of the screen. You recover dash charges by landing, and you'll recover shot charges by dashing. And the challenge here is that you'll need to balance them both to fight the enemies and deal with a myriad of obstacles, unlocks, and secret paths. So from what we play of this one, the general platforming is really well done. The only complaint that I have from a platforming standpoint is that the camera doesn't do, I think, a good enough job in terms of panning up and down. When you're in sections that you have to kind of drop down or climb up while avoiding obstacles. Now, there are additional upgrades that can kind of make your shots do more damage and things along those lines that we didn't get a chance to see. But I'm definitely curious to see where this one is going to end up when it is released. And if you're looking for a very movement-focused Metroidvania, then definitely check out Elypse. And for something that's a little bit more advanced, we have the last case of Benedict Fox. I don't know who Benedict Fox is, but he is certainly having a tough time. He found his real father to only have them being murdered, he is being haunted by a mysterious spirit, and he is possibly losing his mind. And in order to figure out what is going on, he is going to have to solve mysteries, Metroidvania, and puzzle and adventure solve as well. So the loop of this one is that you will explore the dreams and subconscious of various people looking for clues, lore, and upgrades, which you can then use in the real world in order to move the story along, and then of course go back into the dream world, make more progress, and move kind of like that. It's almost like, I guess, Lovecraftian Psychonauts in that respect. As our friend Benedict Fox here, you have quite a means of getting around and fighting. You are armed with, I guess, the flare gun from Alan Wake that charges as you fight enemies. You can parry, block, and get more attacks and abilities. One thing that I didn't like is how the double jump works. The double jump, at least in the version that we play in the demo, is a charge, and that is kind of like the ellipse you see at the top of the screen. And you can only double jump in specific spots, and that's when you see kind of like this purple hue along the ceiling, like right there. And it doesn't feel as intuitive or natural to use compared to just standard double jumping. I really like the art direction, the aesthetics of this game, and this is looking to be a very advanced version of Metroidvania and action-adventure design. If you're not a fan of the genre or looking for kind of an entry level, I don't think this game is going to be right for you, but there's definitely a lot of potential for fans looking for a more technical and complicated take. And now we turn to something a lot simpler, and that is Planet of Lana. This is a puzzle platformer where we play as Lana, a girl who wakes up on a mysterious planet and is aided by what looks to be some kind of monkey-style creature. And it's up to them to explore, get into fun hijinks, and I'm sure as with games of this kind, either the story will end very happily or very soul-crushingly depressing. But our main gameplay here is the interaction between Lana and her friend. Puzzles are going to revolve around you moving the two around specific areas, ordering your friend to do specific tasks. There are some things that require one person to stand on a spot to trigger another event, or go somewhere to open up a door or release a switch of some kind to then let the other one do it. From what we played of the demo, this is not going to be, I would say, on the super difficult side in terms of puzzle platforming, but it looks to be very entertaining, and I really love the aesthetic of this one. The kind of hand-drawn look works incredibly well, especially with some of the backgrounds and set pieces. And it's one of those games that just really invites you to look around and kind of piece together what is happening just by the environment that you're going through. So with that said, Planet of Lana is yet another easy recommendation from nextfest, and we're going to wrap up the video here, but we are not done. I still have about 6.5 more nights of footage to go through for this series, so there are plenty more to come. Thank you for watching. Do the liking, subscribing, bell ringing, and so on. If you are a developer with a game you'd like me to take a look at for a future video, please reach out. Visit our Discord and Patreon link down below, and come back for part 2 really soon, and for daily discussions on game design here, and on game wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games.